Do you love someone that's struggling with an addiction? Have you felt like it's your fault? Are you exhausted from sleepless nights, from being lied to and manipulated? Maybe you've been abused mentally, emotionally, or even physically. Well, it's time to step off the addiction roller coaster for good and find a solution that works. Join addiction experts and authors of the Freedom Model for Addictions and hosts of the popular podcast, The Addiction Solution, Mark Sheeran and Michelle Dunbar, to learn a solution that provides freedom from the addiction battle for good. It's called Families Moving Beyond Addiction Masterclass, and it's a 3-hour live exclusive event where you'll hear information about addiction we guarantee you've never heard before, and that's great news. If you love someone that's struggling with an addiction, then this masterclass is for you. For more information or to sign up, click the link below and register soon, because each class is limited to just 50 enrollees, so we can best serve you. Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. We want to send you a free copy of our revolutionary book, The Freedom Model for Addictions. To help us bring this incredible gift to you, we ask that you pay a small fee for shipping. Learn how tens of thousands of people have permanently solved their addictions without steps or meetings, and make 2023 your best year yet. Give yourself or someone you love the gift of total freedom from addiction. Click on the link to get your free copy sent to you today. Hey everyone, welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran.
And we wrote, we didn't bring the book. We wrote The Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap with our colleague Stephen Slate, and also The Freedom Model for the Family. And actually that is kind of what we're going to talk about today. Is we still have this list of topics that people had given us now about a month ago. We did not release a podcast last week because we both are getting over like a really bad flu, cold, COVID kind of thing. And
so we're going to be coughing,
clearing our throats a little bit.
A lot. I'm sorry.
I'm feeling much better now.
Oh yeah, I feel a lot better. We have this residual cough. We've had it a couple times this year. It's just been one of those annoying seasons, but whatever, just put up with us. I hope.
All right. So we're coming to the end of the list. We've covered most of the topics that people had given us. And so this one was educating your family about your new way of thinking and viewing addiction. That can be incredibly challenging, especially if you have family that are already steeped in 12-step, or if you've had any like what they would consider to be any success with it. I mean, I know it's difficult for families when people have, put several months or years together, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, this 12-step thing doesn't seem to work and I don't like it. That's a hard pill for families to swallow, when it looks like you've been successful with it. And also that we're going to tie it in with the topic dealing with or being around difficult people that challenge your patience, people that disagree with you and they want to tell you about it. And
sometimes with no basis of knowledge.
Right. Exactly.
Which can be really difficult.
Very, very difficult. So that's what we're going to talk about.
All right. So one of the things I want to make an announcement, a little housekeeping stuff here. We are also doing for the public a Families Moving Past Addiction Masterclass. So we decided on this topic, first of all, because it was on the list, but Michelle and I have been working on building a course for families. And it's a It's going to be 2.5 to 3 hours on March 25th, 2023, on a Saturday, middle of the day, here on the East Coast. And it's going to be addressing families who have a spouse, a child, a friend, who's actively using or is
or trying, going to treatment
and
or
failing.
failing, or it's for your families who you want them to know what you're doing with the freedom model so they're not so fearful.
Yeah. So it's limited to 50 spots. And it's $99. 95 bucks. And there'll be a question and answer session at the end for a half an hour. But we're going to cover some ground in that 2 hours. We're going to show families how to deal with all of this.
Yes.
And it's got a lot of varied topics. And this is something that Michelle used to run for many years at our retreats for the families of our guests.
Yeah, I used to do a 2-day workshop where families would come in and I would take them through on a crash course of the freedom model and tell them exactly what it's all about and how they can best support their loved one who's doing it.
And how to let go of guilt and shame.
Big and fear.
Yep. I was just going to say the pain of fear, and to let go a lot of that with the facts. And so it's going to be a really extraordinary thing. We're going to put a lot of effort into this. We're expanding on what Michelle did for many years. And I think it's going to be the most comprehensive family seminar style thing, webinar, whatever you want to call it, ever.
Yeah. And it'll be interactive. People will be able to ask questions. A lot like what we do now when we do our 2-hour Q&A within the online program. It'll be the question and answer portion will be like that.
Yep.
Where they'll be able to either submit questions throughout what we're doing. They can submit them and, by typing them in while we're doing our presentations. And also at the end, they'll be able to actually talk with us.
So this podcast, we do a half an hour. This podcast will be kind of like a short little piece of what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
But this is, we literally are coming up with this topic off the top of our head today. So it'll be what we produce in the masterclass will be very different and much more comprehensive.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be similar. Well, we have to stuff these concepts into probably about 2 to 2.5 hours. Just the very key points on the freedom model that are most important for families. And if we have the book, The Freedom Model for the Family, is about 120 pages. So we're pulling a lot of that information from there.
Yeah. And how many sessions, how many videos do we have, the tutorials in the Freedom Model online program for the family?
The Freedom Model for the Family, we have 12 video lessons. But they're longer video lessons. So it's probably about 5 to 6 hours of video lessons on there.
So that gives you an idea of what we're going to be trying to stuff into the 2 hours, but we're really going to work hard to make sure that it's super comprehensive and
interesting and engaging
and helpful.
Yes. Very helpful.
So to take away the fear is such a huge, so that parents and loved ones can have peace.
Yeah.
Even if the person decides, I want to still hit it heavy, there's solutions for families. So I think it's going to be an extraordinary thing. I hope some of you sign up if you need it, and
or let your families know about it and people you love who may be worried or concerned about you, who are just curious.
Yeah.
It's instead of doing the online family program, which, like I said, is 5 to 6 hours, or instead of, sitting down and reading the family, the Freedom Model for the Family book, they can really learn all they need to learn in a couple hours on a Saturday.
Yeah. They can be passive. They can sit and be taught it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be announcing that in the next week. You'll be seeing ads on Facebook for it. You'll see there was a commercial at the beginning of this podcast that we did for it. So that's what this is about.
Yep.
All right.
And there'll be a few different dates. We're going to rate off the rip. There'll be 3 different dates people can sign up for. So we've got 2 scheduled for Saturdays and then 1 for a weeknight.
Right. Because we're not sure what's best for people.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
So let's talk about a couple of scenarios. Let's start with our audience. Our audience are people that are obviously interested in the freedom model, reading the freedom model. But I need to back up and say this quick. Freedom model is not a program. We get a lot of this confusion on our group. It's natural tendency because our culture is very programmatically orientated because of the 12 steps. They made recipes, tools, all these flashy sort of things to make it sound like people, if they follow this path, they will end up in a perfect state. The freedom model is just information.
Yeah.
And we recognize that each human being is autonomous with their own thoughts, their own perspectives of the world around them. So the idea that I could, as an author or a program developer, somehow create a recipe that every human being with their free will attach to automatically is ludicrous. That's why programs don't work. Now, we have the Freedom Model online program. The programmatic part of that is just that it's pre-recorded video. It's not the information.
It's a learning process.
Yeah, it's a learning process. It has nothing to do with the information. The 12 steps is you do these steps with this information and you will end up here.
Right. It's prescriptive. The 12 steps is prescriptive. It's a supposed recipe to sobriety, right? Where if you do this, and this, you're going to be sober forever.
Right. We make no claims about that because that's not our goal. Our goal is not to be sober, to be abstinent, to moderate, to have you. It's not prescriptive. So
the goal of the freedom model is for you to understand that you are free, that addiction doesn't just happen to you. You're not a passive victim of this thing called addiction. You're not a passive victim of the drugs you're putting in your body. It's the freedom model is about really undoing this idea that there is something that happens to you that's out of your immediate control to change.
That's right. That's external to you, that happens to you, that is inflicted upon you, that is a condition that you have no control over, all the disease ideals, right? All of that, it has to be cleared away. And then what are you left with? You're left with a person, me, you, all the people, as autonomous, singular people. It's you making decisions for yourself. And when that crystallizes, that you have the innate power of free will, of choosing, and that you can choose anything based on your positive drive, whatever it is you perceive as best for you, you're free because you get to choose. There's no prescriptive thing. There is no little path you need to follow. The freedom model doesn't have a path.
No.
I mean, even if you look at the table of contents with the information, it's divided. The table of contents is divided into tiny little topics so you can pick and choose. And you can say, oh, I'm going to choose my adventure today on my self-image as an addict. I think I'd like to challenge that today. Okay, you're autonomous, right? You get to do that. And so the whole thing is just about undoing these chains of mythology that makes you feel enslaved or compelled or have a loss of control. And all of that is hard to undo if you've been deeply entrenched like Michelle and I were. It took us a long time to undo a lot of that.
I want to address a couple things.
This is for families to hear too.
For families to hear. There is one of the things I think, well, there's a couple things that are coming to my mind as Mark is talking, and there are comments that people have said or emails that we have gotten, and they're all surrounding. They're coming from a place of such heavy mythology and misinformation that is why so many people, even people that read the freedom model, even people that have come into our group, have a lack of understanding of what the freedom model is all about. I mean, there's a whole lot of people in the group that have read the book over and over again. They get it. They totally get it, and they are free.
And they're very helpful.
And they're very helpful because, but what you have to understand is when you're coming from a place like some of the people that we've been talking to recently of feeling broken, feeling out of control, feeling like something genuinely is happening to you, we get that. We totally understand that. And the freedom model breaks that down. The goal of the freedom model is to show you that yes, you may feel that way, but it is an illusion. It isn't real. And it
isn't an inherent reality.
Right. And it's a combination of so many different factors. One being that we live in a culture today that is systematically making people feel weak and fragile. Okay. For all kinds of different reasons, all kinds of different things, ultimately under the guise of it being more compassionate, right? Under the guise of, there's like this pull between the bootstrap people, just, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get your shit together, right? And then there's the people that are like, no, we need to help people. People are suffering, people are struggling. It's somewhere in the middle, okay, where really you had the bootstrap people are like, you have control over your life. That's true.
But they're already in a place where they understand that.
Yes. Yeah. The people that are struggling don't understand that. So it can feel very callous when somebody says that to them.
Super dismissive.
Yes. Yeah. And so the freedom model is in the middle. It says, yeah, we totally understand where you are. And oh, by the way, where you are is probably, half your fault and half the fault of misinformation you've been given throughout your life through our culture.
And in both those situations, you're sort of lost and don't even understand what the hell is going on and how you're being played.
Yeah. If you're seeking a solution to your substance use problems that doesn't label you for life or make you go to daily meetings with strangers, and instead shows you how you can solve your problem and create the life you truly want, then you've come to the right place. The Freedom Model is for you. The Freedom Model program options allow you to continue to live your life, learn the Freedom Model on your schedule, and implement what you're learning immediately in your daily life. The Freedom Model online program consists of more than 20 hours of video lessons taught by Mark and me. There are 2 to 3 lessons per chapter to guide you through the Freedom Model text. We have also included our lessons, the mind and the brain, the binge construct, and life movements. You'll get digital copies of our book, our workbook, additional lessons and their worksheets, and our audiobook. Included with the online program is the Freedom Model for the Family online program and books, new Freedom Model quick lessons posted weekly, the Freedom Model monthly newsletter, the 12-step deprogramming seminar series, and a monthly 2-hour members-only live question and answer webinar with Mark and me. To enroll in the Freedom Model online program, go to online.thefreedommodel.org or click on the link. Yes. And so as so the people that are suffering kind of look at the Freedom Model and go, oh yeah, I actually got an email from somebody that said, do you think addicts are going to read a book? Yeah, I know a lot of people with heavy substance use problems that are avid readers.
Tens of thousands have. Tens of thousands.
So how dismissive? Like that attitude. Does that attitude sound compassionate and non-judgmental?
Right. To put everybody in a box that they're this lost, useless,
hopeless, weak, unintelligent, I mean,
lazy.
Yeah, like I don't. This is why I don't like this idea. Like when you say the word addict or alcoholic, it conjures up an image in your mind of a very specific, everybody has their vision
Yeah,
of
the
that person.
stereotypical junkie.
Yes,
Yeah.
right? Everybody has their and that's why I like to say substance users. And
That's right.
because that doesn't really, there's not a stereotypical substance user. I mean,
That's right. Can I need
yeah,
to jump in there. So we were very, very careful to come up with the term substance user.
not abuser.
That's right. We don't say substance abuse. Look in the book, look in the Freedom Model, you see it. We don't say substance abuse. We don't call people addicts or alcoholics. We use the term when we're describing things about
Because
that concept.
that's what people
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. But
We had to walk this line of meeting people where they are, but also
guiding them to this term substance.
yeah, to changing the vernacular.
That's right. So everybody that's watching this that has problematic substance use is a substance user. Now, why is that so important? Is because it takes and creates a term where the responsibility for use is on the substance user. It says you are a user of substances. There's no judgment in that. It says it could be heavy, massive, habitual use with withdrawal, all the way to somebody that smokes pot once a week, right? They're all substance users. But what it does is it points out the autonomy of the individual. That's what it shows. Hey, oh, sorry, we just had somebody walk in. So it's really important to understand that a substance user, what we're saying is, hey, we get it. You're an autonomous individual. You're using to the exact amount that you think is beneficial to you on the front end. And we also understand that the costs and trade-offs may be even tragic.
Yeah.
So we recognize both sides, and that is compassionate to say, hey, I celebrate your autonomy. You're entitled to use the way you want to use. But we also recognize that it may turn out fucking bad.
Right.
And we've been there. And that's
so then we can talk about, well, okay, that then you self-identify as having a problematic substance use, right? It's just a more accurate depiction of what's happening.
And the wonderful part for families is when you start using these terms and you stop saying, my daughter is an alcoholic. What hope is in that term? There's no hope in that term because you just pigeonholed them into a powerless, because we all know what the stereotypical alcoholic definition is. And that is they're hopeless. They need treatment. They got to be coddled, or you have to have, you got to be mean to them and kick them out of the house. I mean, there's all this misinformation. None of that is true. What it comes down to is recognizing, you know what my daughter is? She's a drinker. She's chosen to drink for personal reasons. She's a substance user.
Right. You can even say heavy drinker.
Yeah.
I mean, when I would do my workshops for families, I would use this example where I'd say, you take your adult daughter to the doctor, and there's a very different reaction if the doctor says, okay, so she just has a bad cold, or she has cancer. Okay. There's a huge different reaction to that. Obviously, if somebody has a cold, it's going to take care of itself. She's going to be better in a couple days and everybody's going to move on. If it has cancer, this could be a lifelong diagnosis. It could be terminal. There's all these things you have to start thinking about. The same thing happens. There's a difference when you say, oh, this person is a heavy drinker, or this person is an alcoholic.
Oh my God, their world's different. One is hopeless.
Yes. One is this lifelong diagnosis and identity that they take on. That means, oh, life is going to be really hard.
Yeah. It's a condition.
Yeah.
Or a substance user is somebody that's choosing for themselves what they think is best for them, and it turns out bad.
Well, sometimes. And when you say substance user, with respect to the families, and this is what I think is really great. If the parents are, they enjoy their wine or enjoy their craft beer or whatever, and then, or your spouse is a drinker, but not a heavy drinker. Now, all of a sudden, when you say substance user, you both are part of that group, right? If you're, whether you're a heavy drinker or a light drinker, you're still the same as this other person.
That's
You
right.
just use it a little bit differently. And so I think then that brings us all, so that it's not this kind of us and them kind of thing. No, I'm no different than you. I drink a little more than you do, or maybe I drink a lot more than you do. Maybe I drink more often than you do. But let me figure out if I can be happier making a change, is a whole lot different than saying I get to drink, but you don't.
Yeah, you can't. You have a condition, and you're not capable.
Right. You're not
you've
like me.
right. You've used up your right to drink or drug.
Yeah.
I hear these things that people say, and I get where people are coming from, because anytime that you have a loved one that has a habit that ends in catastrophe
Yeah.
or pain, nobody wants that.
No.
And what the treatment industry has done is not provided compassion. They've provided a huge distraction from the actual solution. And
and a way of singling people out, of dividing and separating people,
yeah,
into these little groups of people. Well, you're a meth head and you're a crackhead, and
Yeah.
you're a junkie, and so there's all these little, everybody's divided out. Even the 12-step program itself has divided it all out. You can't, you're different than I am. I mean, I can remember being in AA meetings, and I went back and forth between NA and AA for a little while, and they're even there's this, and I was talking to somebody online yesterday, there's this thing about, oh, those people. He said that they call, in his NA groups, they call the AA people the liquid fellowship. The liquid fellowship. Like, it serves no purpose to divide people into these little groups of that everybody else looks down on.
Well, all of it is centered around identifying all of these people as an addict or alcoholic. So you make them different than the normies.
Yes.
And then all this infighting about who you are and what you are, and junkie pride, and all that plays into it, and rewriting your own life history and narrative according to the gurus of 12-step and treatment pressures. And none of it is really helpful.
Mm-mm.
Because the truth is, nobody's looking at reality. And what is reality? That people drink and drug the way they drink and drug because they see benefit in it. And that discussion is completely left out of the equation. And it's not compassionate to saddle people with conditions they don't have. The other thing is, sorry, excuse me. So the other thing is, Stanton Peele wrote, I'm going to switch the topic a little bit because we're talking about families. This trauma causes addiction thing is really getting legs now. And I predicted this almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the chapter on learned connections, because it's such a powerful chapter about how far off we've gone. But I just read Stanton Peele's piece on his meeting with Gabor Mate. And I hope everybody reads it. Just do a search on Stanton Peele, Gabor Mate paper. And he really explains the dangers of this theory. And every family should read it.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, 16 pages or something. But it's excellent.
Yeah. The thing about this is, and I want to go back to talking about being compassionate. We're not saying that, just quit. We're not saying that the freedom model has 470 pages. So we're not saying that people, can just learn, it's me, I'm the solution, and I can just,
Right.
right. I think people misunderstand us now. I want to say that some people do that.
They do, because they're in a place where they're so open to that and they understand it intuitively already.
Yes.
They just need somebody to agree with them.
Yes. And we have thousands of people that have written to us, that we get
amazing
emails and letters every day. People like, oh my God, my problem is solved. And it happened very quickly. And that's amazing. We weren't those people. Okay. Like if somebody, which somebody did, my dad told me basically when I was really struggling and drinking heavily and ironically I'd quit drugs, just kind of quit drugs cold turkey a few months
Yeah,
before.
me too.
But he basically said to me, he's like, yeah, you can quit drinking whenever you want. Like, and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a choice. It's a choice. You know, for after he'd been telling me my whole childhood that he was an alcoholic and I'd be an alcoholic and my grandparents were alcoholics and that it was, you know,
Yeah, he was figuring it out.
he was figuring it out. And then all of a sudden he told me that he's not an alcoholic. And I'm like, what the heck are you even saying? Like, I was there. I was where the skeptics are when they look at the freedom model. I was in a place where I felt out of control. I felt like something was happening to me.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and it for me, it wasn't just a matter of, oh, I'm going to quit and everything's going to be great. My life's going to be totally on track and wonderful. I did just quit on my own. I did do that. Um, and maybe it would have been great and wonderful had I not gone to 12-step meetings.
I think to your point, there's like a spectrum of the amount of mythology that people carry in their minds. There's a spectrum. And I've met people that are so deeply entrenched in all the buzzwords. They take it on. Their lives are completely crushed by all of it. They live in confusion. They live in pain.
Yep.
They live in guilt. But mostly confusion and anger. They become angry, confused, and they'll defend the recovery scenario literally to their demise.
Yeah.
That to me is the most tragic of all the demographics because they're not even willing to challenge anything.
No.
And
they're so
fearful. Yeah, because they've invested so much and somehow in their mind it makes sense because it provides,
even if they didn't put together any time.
Right. Even because there's fail safes within recovery ideology that it's expected that you're going to be in a negative feedback loop of pain.
Yeah.
So the people accept that and they say, I want this insulative comfort of pain and I don't have to live my life or challenge anything or my thinking. Challenging thinking is harder than getting in shape. It's harder than changing a career because but here's the deal. When you make the decision, I think I'll challenge my thinking and I'm open to it. Boom. The world changes. Boom.
That is certain.
Right? That's when the positive drive shifts the mental gaze. And all of a sudden if you're at all motivated, it will build on itself and you will change. You will evolve because you're meant to. It's very painful to stay static. It takes tremendous effort to stay static. So if you're one of those people in that demographic and you're listening to this and you're picking it apart and you're picking everything, okay, I get it.
For sure.
I was there. It took me 12 years to extricate myself from AA.
25 years to write the book.
Yeah, 27 years of work. We were fucking deeply screwed, man. So we get it. But I can't tell you from my perspective how painful it is for me to see people who are just unwilling to even read the book or listen to an audiobook or get the Freedom Model online program and watch our tutorials. They're not even willing. They're willing to argue on our groups. They're willing to do all this.
Bash us. They're willing to bash us based on
something that isn't even working for them.
Exactly. But look I do remember thinking, like, trying to, when you look at everything as black and white, which I think is part of it. It's look at the 12-step mentality. This is all or nothing thinking.
Oh, it's so simplistic and dogmatic.
Yeah. And so people often will, when they're arguing for the disease model, they'll say things like, oh, so you're saying my dad picked booze over his kids. And it's so that, like, that, which to me is a false dichotomy, right? It's never, and we in chapter I can't remember which chapter it is, but we talk about this exact scenario in the book, that it's never just a binary decision between choosing your marriage or choosing drugs.
Yeah, nobody sits and says every time they drink, I like booze more than my wife.
Yeah, nobody thinks that way.
They might think
Well, they might.
They might think it once in a while.
Right. Like it's worth it.
To some circumstance that exists in their life. But I guarantee you, there's a lot more behind that drinking preference than just that.
Yes.
Okay?
And a lot of times it doesn't have, I mean, we know people that are in wonderful marriages that know that their marriage is in jeopardy, but they keep drinking, right?
Yeah.
And because probably the drinking has nothing to do with the marriage per se. People have strong preferences for intoxication for incredibly personal reasons, or strong preferences for whatever behavior they're doing.
So let me sum this up so you understand what she's saying. Free will is infinitely varied because the human mind can think of anything. So each of us in the 7 point whatever billion people on the planet are all thinking different things.
Yes.
And because of that reality, there is no formulaic thing that's going to change people. It just doesn't work that way. People have to come to grips with information the way they're going to come from it. Okay. That's the way it works. So being that free will is infinite, being that your positive drive will manifest based on whatever beliefs you have about things and your perspectives and the way you see the world. The great news is that defines your autonomy. You get to choose how you see this. Now, the freedom model provides a framework of information. And then you can say, I think meetings are important to me. That's because you found meetings to be important to you when most people don't. Okay. In the spectrum.
But that's part of your personal autonomy.
That's part of your personal autonomy, your free will, your perspective. The only thing the freedom model asks is challenge that. Are meetings important? Well, look in the table of contents. We have information about meetings, about statistics, about treatment in the first 3 chapters. Read the first 3 chapters. Gauge the information against your personal belief system, your reality that you've created for yourself, and then make some comparisons. If you're not willing to do that, okay. You'll have the same results that you've had in the past. It's okay. The freedom model doesn't make judgment on those decisions because it's not formulaic. It's not prescriptive. We don't care. We celebrate your autonomy. But if you want to be free and know that you are totally in control, you'll need the information to do that, to challenge your current thinking.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about. It's just information. What does the research show? And you don't know because it's not mainstream. What's mainstream is mythology. What's mainstream is misinformation and propaganda about addiction that is designed to control people and tell them how to live. It is designed to be prescriptive, which is why it is so difficult for people to really get a good grasp of what the freedom model is all about.
Yeah.
Because they are looking for something that's prescriptive. They do believe on some level that people are sick and powerless and broken.
That's so hard for people to understand, that there's nothing wrong with you, that you've been sold a bill of goods that's untrue.
Not only is there nothing wrong with you, but you're normal, because building habits is normal for everyone.
Struggle is normal. Trauma is normal. Stress is normal.
Right. Life is hard. Life on this planet is hard. And so people get their own little ways of getting through that. And some people do it using substances. Now, does that mean that trauma and stress and anxiety and mental health issues cause heavy substance use? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But what it means is it may play a factor based on your beliefs.
If you believe it does, you will make the connection. That's what the learned connections I talked about earlier mean. And then that will become your reality. So
Yes.
we talk all the time about that if you believe certain things, that's your reality. So if you believe that stress is taken away by alcohol, my God, it will be. But
Yeah.
that's you. So
If
our
you
beliefs
believe
matter.
alcohol helps to relieve your pain or helps you to sleep at night, or if you believe these things. And what's interesting about that is a lot of people will come in with these beliefs. They'll come to coaching, they'll come into the retreats, which we used to have, and they'll say, yes, I believe these things are helping me. But then when they look at it objectively, they have a different perspective on it.
Right. With the research.
With the research, they realize, oh, it hadn't been doing that for me for a long time. Maybe it never did.
Right.
And that's what happens. That's what Mark was talking about. When you decide, okay, I'm going to challenge my beliefs, I'm going to open my mind. Show me some evidence to the contrary.
Yeah. And we provide lots of evidence. So let's just let's tie this up. Do you have to?
I think I have to take this.
Go ahead, go. I'm going to tie it up. So with a lot of coughing, apparently. So what I want to tell families is that you can absolutely find peace. You can absolutely know that your loved one is going to be okay. They may not be okay in certain circumstances, but you can also learn how to let go and move on with your life. We can show you all of these things, even though the circumstances might be horribly difficult. But the good news is that most people get over these problems. And most people don't know that. And most families don't know that. So I hope that people will sign up for the family masterclass. And I hope that we did a good job today of highlighting some topics we'll be covering. And yeah, so I hope everybody's happy and take care. And we'll talk to you next week.
Are you struggling with a drug or alcohol problem, but you don't want to go to rehab or group meetings? Well, that's why we created the non-12-step Freedom Model Coaching Program in 2011. Through video conferencing on Zoom or Skype, you can work privately with a certified Freedom Model coach from your home or office on your schedule. And here's the best part. With the Freedom Model, you'll never be labeled an addict or an alcoholic, and we won't tell you to go to 12-step meetings or hamper your life with endless recovery rituals. Instead, you can learn exactly why addiction isn't a disease and how you can solve the problem for good and move on with your life. Do you want to be completely free from your addiction? Do you want to never have to attend meetings, rehabs, or addiction counseling ever again? And do you want to solve your problem from the comfort of home? Then call us at 888-424-2626 to talk with a Freedom Model coach today and experience the Freedom Model difference.